Hello, everybody. Thank you, Jean-Paul. So, as Jean-Paul mentioned, my name is Marine, and I work for the European Association representing hotel, restaurants, bars, and cafes. We represent almost 2 million businesses across the EU. And it's important to note that 89% of the businesses we represent are micro enterprises. So we don't represent big chains of restaurants. And that's very important to bear in mind for the topic that interests us today. So Jean-Paul, you're not showing the visuals right now that I shared, are you? So I believe you know this graph potentially if you followed the course. So it's just to show, how much, where the food waste occurs in the EU. As Jean-Paul mentioned, in 2021, it was 131 kilos per inhabitant overall. And if you look at restaurants and food service, it's 12 kilos. So I represent restaurants. Food service is also something else, which is collective catering, which I won't touch upon today. But this graph, I think, shows very well that that's an issue that we can't solve on our own. And I imagine other panelists will have kind of the same approach. We really need to have a holistic approach and work hand in hand to tackle this issue. And that's one of the first challenge, actually, that I wanted to bring to the table. Talking about restaurants, the second challenge, which we can discuss today, is what we refer to as conflicting demands. So you come to us to restaurants because you would like to enjoy a special moment. You're not coming just to get fed. So we are a service industry. You come to us, you want to be satisfied by the atmosphere, by the service, by the food, obviously, by the recipe, by the creativity. Okay, so all these, you want these, but also as a consumer, you want fair prices or sometimes cheap prices. You want a very large diversity of choices on the menu, but you also, as a very, important consumer who knows his environment, wants to make sure we have sustainable practices in the restaurant. So you would question if the menu is too long. That means how much food waste is generated. So we have to deal always with this kind of ambiguity, almost schizophrenic situation where we have to answer to many different conflicting demands. So that's one challenge I wanted to bring. The third one, is conflicting policies. We are talking about food waste. We will talk in a minute or later during this chat about the food waste reduction target that the EU is putting in place. Fair enough. We also are talking about something like reduction of packaging. Well, sometimes policies have different goals, and it could conflict one and the other. So we are asked to reduce the packaging that we use in our establishments. In some situations, the packaging help preserve the food. There is a meaning, there is a reason why it exists, and it could then lead to more waste. So the last challenge, thank you, Jean-Paul, for bringing this, is more linked to how we operate as a small restaurant. So on this picture, you see it's an organization called Recyclo, who is working in Brussels. They are picking up organic waste from restaurants by bike, so very sustainable, like green, in these huge blue boxes. It's about 400 kilos they can carry on one bike of organic waste. They pick up the waste from restaurants, and then they go and they compost it, and they resell it to farmers all over the region. Do I have to stop, Jean-Paul, already? No? Okay.
No, you're good.
And so this is just to show you how, again, sometimes we have good intentions and it's difficult to put everything in place. The picture on the left that you see is one very small restaurant in Brussels who is using the service of Recyclo, so to make sure his organic waste will be valorized. But because he has a very small space and a very small kitchen, he is using a big freezer to freeze the waste in the blue box that you see while he waits for the waste to be picked up. So, of course, waste will be valorized, but then it will have to use energy cost and everything to make sure his freezer works. But that's also linked to the challenge linked to operations, which is the space. Making sure we organize ourselves properly, we valorize our waste properly in a small establishment is difficult, and also in terms of staff. So one element that you have to keep in mind, and it was probably in the EIT food online course, training is key. Training is key at every step of the way. And what we face today as an industry, we're not the only industry facing this, is very difficult, high difficulty to recruit. So this brings another layer of complexity. When you want to make sure your restaurants reduce waste, have a good practices in place, you need to train and train again every time you have a newcomer. So that's another challenge, let's say, to also bear in mind. I'll stop here and we can answer any question later.